Dong-do is an extremely skilled martial artist, proficient in many fighting styles, including fencing. His most prominent skill is in Taekwondo, where he holds a black belt. On the battlefield, he has almost no rival. Aside from his martial arts prowess, the protagonist is also a gaming enthusiast, and among his friends, he is the best, often taking on the role of carrying the team to victory. However, despite his talents, Dong-do is somewhat of a drifter without a stable job, so he is frequently forced by his father to deliver fried chicken. One day, while on a delivery to an alleyway, he unexpectedly came across two people engaged in a fight. At first, Dong-do simply stood at a distance, watching and enjoying the solo duel between them. But soon enough, the man in black overpowered the man in orange. Surprisingly, the man in orange pretended to beg for mercy, causing the man in black to lower his guard. Then, the man in orange suddenly turned and struck him. Witnessing such a dishonorable act, Dong-do could no longer stand idly by. He rushed over and swiftly took down the man in orange in an instant. After looking closely at the ankle bracelet on the man's leg, Dong-do realized that he was a recently released convict under surveillance. As it turned out, the man in black was a police officer. By sheer chance, Dong-do had assisted the police in apprehending a criminal. As a result, the next day, he received a commendation from the police department. Not only that, but he was also praised by Captain Su-min. Later, the two of them had a conversation. The captain mentioned that his team was short-staffed and that he was looking to recruit skilled martial artists like Dong-do. He asked if the protagonist was interested in the job. Without needing to think it over, Dong-do immediately accepted. The next day, he began his trial period. As soon as he stepped into the office, everyone welcomed him warmly and enthusiastically showed him the ropes. The team's primary task was to monitor the system, as each subject was tracked via an ankle bracelet. When the bracelet's battery dropped below 30%, they had to notify the subject to recharge it. No one is allowed to leave their place of residence without permission. If anyone dares to disobey, the team must immediately apprehend them. After receiving these instructions, the protagonist got a notification that one of the subject's ankle bracelets was running low on battery. He called the subject to ask them to charge the bracelet, but to his surprise, the subject ignored him and turned off the phone. Left with no other choice, he informed the captain, reporting that the subject was showing signs of violating the law. The team quickly prepared to take action. The protagonist was equipped with a bulletproof vest and a stun baton, which he would use if necessary. He and the captain set off, following the GPS tracker. They quickly located the subject, who was attempting to commit a crime. Luckily, the captain was able to break down the door and rush in, but the suspect escaped through a window. However, the protagonist had anticipated this and was waiting outside. Dong-do delivered a swift kick and tested the stun baton on the suspect, easily subduing him. Just like that, their first mission was a success. The captain praised him and promised to treat the protagonist to a celebratory meal. Seizing the opportunity, Dong-do invited his entire group of friends along, with the goal of getting the captain drunk. Little did they know, Captain Su-min had an incredibly high alcohol tolerance, and even with the combined efforts of 4 people, they couldn't get him tipsy. Meanwhile, back at headquarters, 2 colleagues discovered 2 criminal suspects. However, they could only pursue one, so they called the captain for help. Just as the group finished their meal, the captain decided to handle the situation immediately, as the suspects were nearby. Seeing this, Dong-do's friends asked to join in. Thus, a group of 5 set off to the location. When they arrived, they found the suspect's bracelet discarded by the side of the road, meaning they had lost the trail. Fortunately, while Dong-do's friends weren't skilled in martial arts, they were tech-savvy. They used a drone to search for the suspect and soon located him. Without hesitation, Dong-do sprinted to the scene, where the suspect was attempting to break into a civilian's home. Fortunately, Dong-do arrived in time, preventing the break-in and swiftly taking the suspect down. Thinking the mission was over, he turned to report to the captain, but when he looked back, the suspect was attempting something desperate. This was the first time Dong-do had encountered such a situation, so he wasn't sure how to handle it. He reported to the captain that he wouldn't be able to reach the suspect in time, so the captain instructed him to follow his lead. Dong-do began to talk to the suspect, asking if someone had been provoking him. Sure enough, earlier that morning, the suspect had been mocked by the homeowner because of the ankle bracelet. Unable to bear the humiliation, he had planned to retaliate. Dong Du then calmly advised him not to make another mistake, explaining that further crimes could result in a lifetime in prison. He promised that if the suspect surrendered, he would help reduce the punishment. Hearing this, the suspect started to reconsider. The suspect began to reconsider, gradually lowering the knife in his hand. Once again, Dong Du successfully completed the mission. But the next morning, while walking down the street, he spotted a suspicious individual. The man had just exited his aunt's hair salon and entered a nearby restaurant, where he began behaving inappropriately toward a waitress. Sensing trouble, Dong Du quickly rushed back to headquarters. It turned out that the man was indeed a dangerous individual known for using his lower body to commit crime. To confirm his suspicions, Dong Du called the man, but the response he got was chilling. "Today is my day." The man hung up immediately, confirming his intention to cause trouble. Dong Du wasted no time and set off with the captain to apprehend him. However, upon arriving at the suspect's location, they discovered that he had removed his ankle bracelet. With no other choice, they split up to search for him, but despite combing the area, the suspect was nowhere to be found, causing the protagonist to grow increasingly anxious. Just then, he remembered seeing the man earlier that morning, leaving his aunt's hair salon. Realizing the potential danger, he rushed to his aunt's house. As Dong Du had feared, the suspect had broken into his aunt's home and was attempting to assault her. In a moment of life or death, the protagonist arrived just in time. Seeing his aunt in danger, he shattered a window and burst inside, effortlessly sending the suspect flying across the room. Although the man tried to fight back, it was to no avail. Dong Du subdued him and handcuffed him, successfully rescuing his aunt. By the end of that day, Dong Du's trial period had come to an end. The captain asked him if he wanted to continue working with them, and, of course, Dong Du agreed, officially becoming a black belt officer. However, not long after, a shocking event occurred. A highly dangerous criminal, notorious for committing assaults with his lower body, was released from prison after serving a 20-year sentence. Dong Du's team was assigned the responsibility of monitoring him. When news of his release spread, the public was outraged, fearing that he would continue his criminal activities. Many people even took to the streets in protest, demanding that the government keep him locked up forever. Their fears weren't unfounded. On the very night of his release, someone approached the criminal, offering him a deal to participate in an illicit business project. The man was told to come to a specific address the next morning if he wanted to learn more. The next day, while monitoring the system, Dong Du noticed the criminal leaving his residence. Fearing he was about to commit a crime, Dong Du immediately set out to follow him. The man entered a shopping mall, but when Dong Du rushed inside, he couldn't find him. It turned out that the criminal had gotten into a car parked in the underground garage. Inside the car was his business partner, who laid out the plan. They wanted him to act in staged videos with actors provided for him. Each video would earn him $10,000. The criminal quickly agreed to the deal. By this time, Dong Du had reached the parking garage, but the car had tinted windows, preventing him from seeing inside. He made sure to memorize the car's license plate before reporting the situation to the captain, informing him that they had lost track of the suspect. Meanwhile, the criminals in the car also recognized Dong Du and decided they needed to deal with him immediately. Shortly after, the captain called the suspect Ki Dong, but the man answered casually, claiming he was just out shopping, leaving the team with no concrete evidence to act on. However, later that night, an incident occurred. A suspect showed signs of committing a crime, but since Dong Du was tailing Ki Dong, the captain had to personally lead the team to respond. Unfortunately, this turned out to be a trap set by the criminals. Their plan was to divide the police force, making it easier to confront them. By the time the captain realized they had been deceived, it was too late. He and his subordinates were forced to fight against dozens of criminals. Meanwhile, Dong Du, who had been tailing Ki Dong, was also discovered. Ki Dong lured him into an alley, where his accomplices ambushed him. Despite being outnumbered, Dong Du was unafraid, taking on the entire group single-handedly and sending each one to the hospital with severe injuries. However, the captain's situation was far more dire. With only 2 officers, they were quickly overwhelmed by the gang. The captain was knocked unconscious, and his subordinate, despite resisting bravely, couldn't hold out much longer. In the end, both of them were beaten into unconsciousness. Back on Dong Du's side, after dealing with the thugs, he realized that Ki Dong was about to commit a crime. He immediately rushed to the scene, where the criminals were preparing to shoot their first illicit film. The female lead in this movie was none other than Eun-hee, a terrified girl trapped in the room. Luckily, Dong Du arrived just in time. Pressing his ear against the door, he heard screams from inside, confirming that Ki Dong was about to act. Using all his strength, Dong Du tried to break down the door, but it was too sturdy. Desperate, he ran outside and ripped off a nearby metal railing to force his way in. Thanks to his extraordinary strength as a black belt officer, he managed to tear the iron bars off quickly. Smashing through the window, he climbed into the room, only to find Ki Dong and his accomplices waiting for him. They attacked him in unison, overwhelming Dong Du to the point where it seemed he might not make it out alive. But just when it looked like he was about to fall, Dong Du spotted Eun-hee, her fear fueling his resolve. Drawing upon his inner strength, he flipped a table and knocked out 2 of the criminals. It seemed like the battle was finally over. Dong Du opened the door and prepared to rescue Eun-hee. But in a sudden twist, Ki Dong launched a surprise attack from behind. Fortunately, at that very moment, police reinforcements arrived, forcing Ki Dong and his accomplice to flee. Dong Du was rushed to the hospital for emergency treatment. Thankfully, his injuries weren't life-threatening, and before long, he regained consciousness. However, Dong Du then received devastating news. The teammate who had gone with the captain didn't make it. This left him heartbroken, and at the funeral, he couldn't hold back his tears. He swore to himself that he would make the criminals pay. Soon after, Ki Dong gathered his friends to help him investigate the license plate number he had spotted at the parking garage. It didn't take long before they tracked down the owner of the car. The group broke into the suspect's house, subdued him, and searched the place. As expected, they found a lot of incriminating footage on his computer. There was no doubt now this man was an accomplice of Ki Dong. Unable to contain his anger, Dong Du made sure the criminal would only see the world through one eye before demanding the location of the gang. Left with no choice, the man confessed everything. With the exact location in hand, the group planned their next move. While one of the friends, a chubby tech expert, used a drone to scout the area, the others asked around to see if anyone had seen the gang. Their efforts paid off quickly, and they located the hideout. Without hesitation, Dong Du stormed in alone, taking on a group of more than a dozen criminals. But for a black belt officer like him, they were no match. He fought them off while mocking their feeble attempts to hurt him. Sensing that the situation was turning against him, Ki Dong took the opportunity to flee. However, Dong Du's friends had their drone tracking him from above. Noticing Ki Dong's escape, Dong Du stopped playing around and unleashed his full strength on the thugs, leaving none standing within 5 minutes. With them out of the way, he quickly followed his friend's directions and chased after Ki Dong. It didn't take long before he caught up to him, but Ki Dong wasn't easy to defeat. He was strong and quickly overpowered Dong Du. In the heat of the struggle, Ki Dong managed to grab a knife and relentlessly attacked, pushing Dong Du into a corner. Unable to avoid the blows, Dong Du was stabbed in the shoulder. The pain was unbearable, and he collapsed to the ground. Sensing that Dong Du was in danger, his friends took control of the drone and attacked Ki Dong with it, distracting him long enough to allow Dong Du to recover. With the tables turned, Dong Du launched a series of relentless strikes, giving Ki Dong no chance to fight back. He finished the fight with a powerful kick that knocked Ki Dong out cold. The criminal was soon handcuffed, and Dong Du, the black belt officer, had completed his mission. After this, the entire team was praised and awarded medals of honor for their bravery. During the ceremony, the girl Dong Du had rescued also attended, bringing him a bouquet of flowers to show her gratitude. With that, the movie ended. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, drop a comment below with what you want to see next. As always, stay awesome and we'll see you in the next one.